Syria is a tragedy of the most painful sort. It's heartbreaking to watch those incredibly brave people of Homs, Bab al-Mar, to stand up to withstand such a brutal onslaught from their own government, and yet, you know, they're just getting pushed back and massacred, and it is profoundly disturbing to all of us in the United States and I think many countries in the region. The good news is that the countries of the region, including Turkey, the League of Arab States, and now 13 of 15 countries on the Security Council, are all united, and indeed the vast majority of the General Assembly, where we've had 2 resolutions passed by whopping majorities. The last one, I think, had 6 or 7 countries opposing out of 193. Support for the Syrian people, condemnation, abhorrence of what Assad is doing, and support for a political plan put forward by the Arab League, which basically said Assad has to yield power to negotiate to his vice president. There has to be a negotiated political transition leading rapidly to internationally monitored elections. The violence has to stop. There has to be humanitarian access. There's near universal agreement on that. But frankly, Russia and China remain almost alone in the company, get this, of North Korea, Syria, Iran, Venezuela, Zimbabwe. These are the countries that now, North Korea, did I mention North Korea? That now Russia and China are left with in the General Assembly, literally just that small circle who are aligned with Assad. And yet, we have worked exceedingly hard in so many ways, not just in New York, directly with Moscow and Beijing. Countries around the world are seeking to increase both the pressure and the imploring of Moscow and Beijing to do the right thing. But frankly, for reasons that are not even, I would argue, rational from their point of view, over at least the medium term, they continue to hang by Assad, come hell or high water. And that makes meaningful action in the Security Council all but impossible. And we will keep running at this in different ways, but at the moment I am not optimistic. So what does that leave? We're not going to have another Libya-style Security Council-backed air campaign or military intervention. I think as wise and beneficial as the Security Council action was on Libya, it has given Russia and China, among others, an excuse to prevent the same in the context of Syria. But also Syria is very different. I mean, the League of Arab States is united behind Assad has to go, but they are not united behind a multilateral international military intervention. Syria is much more complicated, as you all know, than is Libya in terms of its size, its military power, its sectarian divisions, the interests of regional and great powers in what goes on there. And the opposition is much, much more fragmented. They don't own a part of the country like the rebels in Libya own the east and Benghazi, from which they could push out. I mean, in ways that I could talk about all afternoon, these are different, very different circumstances. Yet we have to continue to up the pressure on Assad. We put in place very tough sanctions, as has the EU, some of the Arab countries. Those have to be tightened. And those that are in place have to be implemented. We've got to support the opposition, if not, as some have called for, through military means, through political and other means, so that they can begin to cohere and have a common agenda. And also, the humanitarian situation is extraordinarily urgent, and so we're doing everything we can to open up humanitarian access. That's very much a part of what the United Nations is trying to accomplish. We, the United States, are trying to increase the assistance that is provided to the people who need it most. And while we are not ruling out other steps, we will keep this under constant review. The ideas that are bandied around about arming the opposition, or even today, I think Senator McCain, for whom I have a great deal of respect, was arguing for a Libya-style air campaign against Syria. I think that really bears much more careful consideration. They're just such different circumstances, and an air campaign against Libya was one thing. I think you all know how well-armed and sophisticated Syria's air defenses are, in part because Russia, instead of sending them to Iran, sent some to Syria. So it is a very different circumstance.